let's move on. Troll Impaler. Pitching enormous spears with bone-crushing force, Impalers are the living ballistae of the trolls. Each carries a quiver of massive wooden and iron projectiles bearing only functional similarity to the puny twigs smaller races call spears. These savage missiles impact their targets with the force of a battering ram, obliterating men and knocking even the greatest beasts off their feet. Of the same troll species as the axe-wielding kin, Impalers are distinguished primarily by their training and armament. Since ancient times, some trolls have a predilection for ripping small trees off the ground and hurling them at the enemies. Trollkins have learned to capitalize on this tendency, selecting trolls with keen eyes and above average coordination for training as Impalers. As they fight alongside their Trollkin cousins, the powerful Impalers are equally deadly in close melee as they are at range. Impalers enjoy the same powers of regeneration and ravenous appetites as other full-blood trolls, and the Trollkins who tend these beasts have learned to keep them well fed, both to discourage them from turning on their allies in the chaos of battle, and to maintain the integrity of their exacting funeral rites for slain kin. These efforts do not always succeed, however, particularly with regard to trolls battered within an inch of death at the Warlock's command, some Creels have reluctantly decided that a few missing bodies at the end of a battle are an unfortunate but acceptable price to pay for calling upon the power of trolls to safeguard their species. And yes, true full-blood trolls do eat, well, literally everything, including, bodies that may be particularly trolly in nature. But that is something that you have to accept with every single war beast troll there is. So, but these guys, when they say the puny twig smaller races called spears, they're not kidding, because the things that they're throwing are about 2 to 3 inches in diameter just for the pole. That's not including the giant spearhead on the front of these things. And yeah, if you're hit by one of these, you're going to hope it doesn't just go right through you, or else you're just going to be launched like a little twig on the wind. So yeah, and for thrown weapons, I would say that these are, better than some more modern firearms. So there's something to be said about old school spears when thrown by a beast that is way bigger than any human species. So, but let's read his Mark 3 to Mark 4 changes and see what we got. And as always, let's start with his stat line. So he is a speed 5, he is a mat 5, he is a rat 6, so he's a little better at throwing, which makes more sense. Defense 12, arm 17, which is kind of heavy arm for a guy that's usually just throwing spears. He is still a Fury 3, still a Threshold 9. And he has the ability to trample, headbutt, and he has dual attack, which means that he can not only run in and kill something with his battle spear, but then he can chuck it afterwards. So having that ability is super useful. His abilities in Mark 4, he still has regeneration D3, so he can be forced to regenerate, and he still has set defense, so models suffer a -2 to charge attack and slam attack rolls against this model. One of the fun things that they've removed from him is assault, just because with the new dual attack kind of everywhere, assault doesn't really have anything to do with this anymore. So, and it gives him more capability, so he doesn't have to assault the guy that he's charging. He can charge one guy and then throw his spear at another. Gives him a little bit more play on that one, especially since the power of his spear is a POW 13, so that is still a pretty dang decent amount of damage, especially on a charge roll. One of the other ones they removed from him is follow-up. So when this model slams an enemy, immediately after the slam is resolved, the model follows up. That's been removed. I'm not sure why it's been removed. Let's read over his weapons and see what we got going on there. We got Thrown Spear. So it is a Rat 6, range 10. Rate of fire 1, POW 13, very damaging spear, I would say. Not only that, it has critical smite, so on a critical hit, the model hit is slammed D6 inches directly away from the model. If the model is larger based on the attacking model, it is rolled half distance, so a D3. Makes sense, because if he's throwing spears at large models, he's only a medium model. Probably can't get the right amount of a swing on it. Then he has his battle spear as melee weapon. It is a Mat 6, range 2, POW 13, which makes sense since his thrown weapon is also a POW 13. And it appears, here's one of the corrections or the updates from Mark 3 to Mark 4. They have removed powerful attack from this model. So he no longer can spend 1 fury point to boost all the attacks and damage rolls for this attack. Unfortunately, that probably got removed for a balancing situation because that is a little OP'd of a thing. And then, of course, the thrown modifier for the strength plus power mess was removed because now it's just a straight, power on the weapon. There's no strength modifier in Mark 4. So that is out. And his Animus is still a Far Strike, which has been nerfed a little bit in Mark 4. So the spellcaster's ranged weapons gain snipe, Far Strike lasts 1 round. An attack with this weapon with snipe gains +3 range. Used to be +4 range, now it's +3. I'm not sure if that was more because they were trying to match it up to some other movement style, but having the ability to throw a range 3 on top of, well, at least his stuff, like if he wanted to, he can get his stuff up to a 13, which is basically almost a sniper rifle. So, and if you give this ability to say, other ranged warlocks in the Trollbloods army, that is even more very useful. So I can see him being a pretty utility piece that you want to keep in your army, especially if you're playing a ranged army, because even though it's not a gun, it's still some damage, and it's still some pretty significant damage, and him being able to give himself or the warlock, additional range on their damage too, very useful. But